I know you're thinking to yourself right now, doesn't he just usually review stuff off of streaming services? Yeah, I went to a theater, bitches. I'm John Stark from ActionMovieGuy.com, and this is Oppenheimer. Uh, Problem is, there's like 7,000 reviews of Oppenheimer, so this review is probably going to get about 5 clicks. So I'm ready for that. I'm ready for this to have been a total waste of my time in that area. But none of them are blind film critics, so we get to talk about the audio description experience with regards to Oppenheimer, which is fun. We'll get to that. But this is the new Chris Nolan film, just in case you didn't know. I feel like I have to introduce this film just like I would any other film, even though everybody knows what Oppenheimer is right now. They're like, oh, please tell me, what is this film that keeps popping up in my YouTube feed that everybody's talking? I have no idea. Please tell me more. So, and it has audio description, even in theaters. It has audio description from Laura Post. I did not stay to the end of the film. I just recognized her voice from the audio description. So, thanks, Laura. And it it's about the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer. It's a biopic, which is something that Nolan has not done yet. Unless you in your mind believe that Batman is real, in which case I suppose he already has done a biopic. He did a trilogy of them. But we need to have a conversation about reality and fiction if you live in that world. No, this is a 3-hour tour of the father of the atomic bomb, and it's not what I expected. Even after watching people's reviews of this film, I thought everybody was pretty all over the place in terms of it being like a tense 3 hours. I didn't think it was that tense. It kind of reminded me, Nolan's script for this is amazing. I think it's the best script it's definitely the best script I've heard this year. It might be one of the best scripts I've heard in the last 5. I think this should win screenplay. I don't know what else is coming out this year, but screenplay, this is way up there for me. It's so tight, the conversations back and forth. It felt like an Aaron Sorkin script, like The West Wing, how they were always doing the walk and talk, and the walk and talk was always impressive. It was like that. It was just like a barrage of comments back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, with subtext. A lot of subtext thrown into everything that was being said, too. And I was just really impressed with the script, which is not usually what I lead with Nolan films. Nolan films, I don't usually go, the script is the first thing that I think of. But I really thought the script here was what tied everything together. If Nolan hadn't written such a damn good script, I don't think the rest of it would have worked, because this involves a lot of talking. And it has to be fast-paced. And he is constantly jumping around in terms of time. And that is a really hard thing to pull off in a crappy script. So it's also interesting to note that it is his script and not Jonathan Nolan. So sometimes he's had his brother come in and write the script, but he's credited as both the director and screenwriter here. So kudos to Chris for knocking it out of the park. Other stuff, of course, the performance from Cillian Murphy is fantastic. You know what was weird is I was sitting in the theater, and because I can't see Cillian, my ears go where they want to go. He sounded like Tyrion Lannister. So at first it was really hard for me because I was picturing Peter Dinklage in Game of Thrones. There was something about what Cillian was doing with his voice that sounded... I'm also rewatching Game of Thrones. I'm going through that as part of some of the TV reviews I do on my website. And so I've got Peter Dinklage's voice in my head. So I did kind of imagine Peter Dinklage as Oppenheimer, which puts the whole film in a different perspective. I got out of it. I got back into Cillian, but at first when I was like, where have I heard that voice before? Oh my god, it's Tyrion. It was a fun experience. Some of the other voices, it was funny because I recognized Downey Jr.'s voice at one point in the movie, but in other scenes, I could tell he was really trying to uh, be in character. Like he was really trying to get this character's voice down, the Strauss, who is, I guess, the film's antagonist. I would say, honestly, the film's antagonist is the bomb, and I think that's what you're supposed to take away from it. But at the same time, sure, if you want to call him the villain, I guess. But I think the fact that, you know, once you follow the narrative of the film and Oppenheimer's views on the whole thing, I think it becomes pretty clear what the actual villain is. But I don't know. We've had films with secondary villains before, so he can qualify as that. Emily Blunt is in here, sort of. She's fine as the wife. I hope I. There's been some talk about her getting an Oscar nomination. I'm kind of hoping it's not for this because she's been so much better in so many other things. And this would be such an obvious, like, we're so sorry we haven't nominated you yet nomination. This isn't even remotely her best performance. It's a good performance because Emily Blunt is a beast and everything, but like she was just in that Amazon limited series, The English. She was better than that. She had more to do. Here she's a couple scenes, and that's where she has some sort of impact on the film. But like most of the cast, if you're not Cillian Murphy, your screen time is dramatically limited. The only other person really who has a massive amount of screen time is Matt Damon. Worth mentioning, Matt is actually in quite a bit of this film, considering most critics keep like sidestepping him in their reviews. I thought Damon did a good job. In a world of would I nominate him for this or Air? That's tough. I feel like Air is more of a Matt Damon performance, and this is more of a performance I wouldn't have given to Damon, but he did a better job with it than I expected from him. So I think the challenge is deeper here than it was in Air. But Air is written for like Damon to flourish in, if that makes any sense. So it's a very tough choice. One of them I felt like has a higher threshold for him to pass. There's a ton of other people in the cast. Some of them I recognize their voices. Some of them I had to IMDb and look up who was playing who with the character. Sorry, I didn't recognize Josh Hartnett's voice. He actually has a decent amount of screen time. It's been a minute, Josh. I don't know what the last time was I saw you in something, but it's been a minute. I think he did a show with Nick Nolte. Whatever that was the last thing that I think I remember Josh being in. And Florence Pugh, she's in this too. There was a weird article before this movie came out that was like, the sex scenes between Florence Pugh and Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer are just, you won't believe it. And I was like, wow, that would be fresh for a Nolan movie. And I mean, there is a sex scene, and I guess that's what's different for a Nolan film, but it's not Euphoria. So calm down. He just put a sex scene in one of his films, which I guess is atypical of Nolan, but it doesn't mean that we need to write articles about it. So clickbait. That's what that was. It was clickbait. Don't read too much into it. It's, even with the audio description, even if I could see that those scenes were not long enough to possibly have impacted in the way that people needed to write an entire article about them. So, but Florence does fine with her 5 minutes of screen time, maybe collectively. It's really hard to say how long everybody's in the film, because we keep cutting and it's so fast paced. I can't say anything about editing. This film feels like it's masterfully edited. Like there's nothing that was left on the cutting room floor. You know, that he could. There's nothing else he could change. Like what else would you cut out? This film feels like it is like a class in editing. This should get best editing of the year. Also, it's just, I don't know. Like it's like it's 3 hours, but it's 3 hours. It's just what it is. Deal with it. I didn't even feel the runtime. Like it's so well edited, and it keeps going at a great pace. I don't know if it was like a breakneck pace where I felt like, I was like, my heart was pounding because the theater was damn loud. That's why it was pounding. I think people are getting confused. I'm gonna get to that. But yes, the actors across the board, I loved them. I loved seeing all of these people now who can say, I've worked with Chris Nolan, I mean, wow, just a massive list of people, from Tony Goldwyn to Michael Angarano to Devin Bostick. Do you remember him from the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies? He's played Roderick in, in the original Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. Yeah, he's now worked with Christopher Nolan. Just a slew of people. Tom Conti plays Albert Einstein in this. Gary Oldman was I did not know that was Gary Oldman. I'm not going to tell you who Gary Oldman plays, but when I looked it up later on, I was like, who played that role? And I was like, oh my God. I'm not even going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you, if you can find Gary Oldman in this film, kudos. Kudos to you. Because I did not. And when I leaned over and afterward and told the person I was with, I was like, that was Gary Oldman. They were like, what? Like, they didn't even, like, I don't know, I guess his makeup is solid enough that he did one of those transformative things again, where it just, I don't know. Welcome to the film. It's a very interesting film that I'm very glad that I've seen. A couple of the things that people aren't going to like so much, but here's the real deal here. I'm blind film critic, so this is my perspective. This is what I get out of films. My theater experience was not great. I'm going to do a completely different video on that, but I do have to address the fact that because I watched it in a movie theater, and literally everything else I've watched this year has not been in a movie theater. And most everything I've reviewed on my channel has not been in a movie theater. So, trying to put it out of perspective, it's a completely different experience. I think if I had seen Oppenheimer on my TV, it would have been a better experience for me. I know that's shocking. But let me tell you that Chris Nolan's sound design is obnoxious in this film when it is used almost as a weapon by theater designers, by the theater, the sitting in a theater, in a live theater, when you have the speakers are turned up to deaf, and I don't mean for deaf people, I mean in an attempt to turn the audience deaf. My theater was so loud. I was not in a 4D theater. I was not in any sort of theater, and my chair was shaking for the majority of the film. My body internally was shaking for the majority of the film. My auditorium was so loud that the shitty little descriptive audio thing that they gave me was, sometimes it was overshadowed just by the sound design, not by the score, not by the dialogue, but by this weird rumbling that happens, which at sometimes is perfect and is exactly where it needs to be used. Other times it seems like Nolan is just keeping it going so that he doesn't jump scare you. Like, it just seems like he's like, okay, well, obviously if I use it only in the times when I need to use it, I'm gonna scare the living crap out of people, Like, there's one time where he does the usual horror trope of dropping the sound out so that he can bring it back in. And that's what they do in horror movies. I mean, that's a jump scare. So there's something to be said for that. And I can't completely ignore maybe that was his line of thought. But there were times where I was like, what are we building to? Why is it so fucking loud? The scene is not that intense. This is like they're driving down a road and it's loud as ever loving shit in this theater. I'm like, my internal organs are moving. It's just, it's like I had such a hard time actually hearing the shitty audio description on the shitty device I was given, um, which had terrible reception. Blind people, why are we going to theaters if this is what we're being given? Why? Like, Regal gave me one of the worst headsets I've ever heard. It was like I was being contacted from beyond the grave with audio description. It was so, like, it was like from the 1940s. It was like degraded sound quality, and like on a, when you're talking to somebody and like they clearly have like one bar and it keeps slipping to like no, so you keep kind of glitching out. I was inside the theater and like it couldn't find me. I wasn't even then that I it was in the theater I'd been to back when I could see, so I know how big that theater is. I wasn't even in the biggest theater in that theater. I was in a decent sized theater. I wasn't in a small theater. I was in like a mid-size. I would call that a medium-sized screen for that theater. But yeah, it was just it's nuts. It's a lot. And I was like, well, I hate the sound design for this film. But then I'm thinking to myself, would I hate it if it was coming through my TV? Because my TV doesn't have all those speakers. And if I watched it like I watch all the other films, what would that have sounded like? And the benefit of that is that it gives the audio description track an opportunity to balance so that I actually would have heard it the whole time. Plus, I wouldn't have had to worry about a headset. So I would have actually heard it from the beginning of the film instead of having to send somebody to go get a new headset like 3 times. It was the 3rd time that my headset worked. So I missed like the first 15 minutes with audio description. So it was just, it's a weird experience. And that's why I'm make a different video. But I do have to address sound design because in a theater, it was like the least pleasant experience about it. But at the same time, everything else is clearly the best thing I've seen this year. So I don't know how I don't give this film an A. It's really hard to even, like, normally this is the point where I talk about Laura Post's audio description. Listen, Laura, if you ever watch my videos, I'm sure you did a lovely job. I have no fucking idea how to even talk about your audio description right now because what I got was fine, like in and out, but it was cutting in and out. And then the film would get so loud that even with these massive headphones that they gave me, like old school sort of noise canceling type headphones, they drowned it out. You know what I'm saying? Like even with the volume up on the audio description, it was not loud enough for the rumblings in certain scenes. So it actually like cut my audio description out. And I don't really know what to do with that. Normally I would talk about everything, but I'll just say I think the audio description excels with the massive cast that is constantly bouncing around. One of the things that the audio description provides is consistency in terms of who is speaking. Because it is really hard with this big of a cast that's constantly jumping around. You're either at Los Alamos or you're in some sort of Senate testimony or you're somewhere else having a different conversation. So there's all these different people that are walking constantly in and out of the film, and at least it's able to tell you who's there, who's on screen, from, I guess, as big of a role as possible. There were some characters that I didn't even realize existed because I'm guessing they were so peripheral to the concept of the film that when I went and looked at the IMDb page, I did feel like there were some people that never made it into the audio description. So I'm guessing whatever they did didn't matter enough to the film. They're credited, but just like those roles, some people had wives, for example, that I feel like were just not in the audio description. They didn't contribute. So, That's really the best I can say, because in the scenes, would people want me to talk about what was it like when the nuke went off? For the first part of it, great. There's a part where the sound drops out, fantastic. When the sound comes back in, I have no idea. Gone. Gone. Just deleted by sound audio description. It was so loud. It was so, and I'm not gonna be that old person. I worked in movie theaters for 10 years. So calm down. I know what surround sound is. I know what everything is. This was set to the kind of volume that you would set a theater at, A, for this type of film, and B, based on the idea that this theater would be full of people and there would be people to absorb some of the sound. We were the only people in the theater. So they set they set it at this incredibly loud volume for me and one other person. And we can't absorb that much sound. So I don't know what to tell you, but it just wasn't a great experience. But I'm not gonna let the experience change how I felt about the film. I don't know that I would have noticed how aggressive the sound design was unless I was physically present in a theater. So it's a testament to where you see things can change how you enjoy a film. Um, but for me personally, when I'm going to talk about awards at the end of the year, it's going to be real hard for me to talk about Oppenheimer's sound design. Because for me, when I think about sound design, I think about, especially in the theater, I think about, the war films where the bullet sounds like it's coming from like the back right corner. Like those films are crazy sound design. It's what gamers seek when they buy those Turtle Beach headsets and they're trying to get that like surround, like it's coming from all around you. This, I didn't even feel like it was coming from all around me. I felt like I was on a ride at a theme park. Like my chair was shaking and everything was just pervasively loud from all directions. There wasn't really like directional sound. It wasn't coming from the front or the back or the sides. It was just the whole damn theater, which is not really sound design. That's just kind of loud. It's just what that is. So, but on my TV, I wouldn't have noticed. On my TV, it just would have seemed like rumblings. And I might have said there's a lot of rumblings in this, but I wouldn't have nearly had the experience that I had in the theater. So all that being said, you know what? Nolan is the kind of director who, he doesn't have a director Oscar. He doesn't have a picture Oscar. Very few directors ever actually win for the film that we would all agree is their best film. Spielberg is tough because it gets kind of debatable as to which film you would think is his favorite, is his best. Do you think Schindler's List is his best film that he ever made, or do you think like Jaws? If you're somebody who thinks that Jaws is the best thing he ever made, then no, he didn't win an Oscar for that. So I think Nolan is going to be really interesting because I think people will debate about, did he win the Oscar for the right film? And he's obviously still got a lot of gas in the tank and he'll make a lot of films. I think there's a really good chance that this wins. I think people are counting this film out, but this is definitely getting an ensemble nomination at SAG. There's no way. With this many people in this film, there's no way this film doesn't get us. There's enough people in this film for them to all vote for themselves into the SAG win, I think. Like half the Screen Actors Guild is in this film. So, but yeah, I think this film is a serious awards contender. I understand why people like Robert Downey Jr. I'm not sold on the fact that he will be the best supporting actor performance of the year, but he's overdue for an Oscar. For some reason, everybody's talking about Tropic Thunder right now to try to bring him down a notch. I keep seeing posts about Tropic Thunder. I shouldn't see it. That film came out in 2008. It's 2023. Stop talking about Tropic Thunder. Anyway, yeah. So, Cillian Murphy, I don't know. Probably it's kind of a thankless performance. When you come down to it, it's just muted. But so is Downey Jr.'s. Everybody, it's just it's dialogue. Without the dialogue, I don't know where the performances would be. So, nobody has that like really just fantastic moment that just screams Oscar. So, but they're all great across the board. So I really enjoyed Oppenheimer. I'm glad I saw it. I don't think I'm glad that I saw it in theaters, but that's debatable. I was asked, I'm doing a podcast coming up, and I was specifically asked to see Oppenheimer for the podcast so I could talk about it, and I have. So, in case you're wondering why all of a sudden did he go to the theaters to see Oppenheimer, that's why. But I'm going to give Oppenheimer an A. Because even with that sound design, there are too many other things that I have to say this is the best thing I've seen this year. This best script I've seen this year. You know, I can't really talk about the score because I felt like, again, the sound design just obliterates the score in certain places. It's rumbling and I'm trying, like, sometimes I could hear the score. Sometimes I was like, is there score playing? So it's really hard for me to commend the score, but the editing. This is best editing. Best editing and best screenplay is where I'm at with my head. And I wouldn't mind picture and director. Because Nolan is overdue. He just is. He deserves to be able to call himself a winner in those categories. So, anyway, this is a long-ass review, but you know what? I saw a long-ass movie. So, hopefully you guys like this. Please subscribe. I want to continue to talk about audio description and the blind experience. It's really important for me in my community. So, the more likes and subscribes I can get, the more I can get my voice out there. I'm not making a lot of waves with 153 subscribers, so the more I can get, it's always appreciated. Thank you so much to those who do subscribe. I also have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can go to Twitter, Instagram, or Threads and follow me at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description where, including theatrical releases. It does list which movies are supposed to have audio description in theaters. If your theater is not providing you with audio description, even a shitty headset, then there's something wrong. But at least you can confirm that an audio description track exists. And you can also go to the ADNA.org where you can look up Laura Post and you can see what else she's been doing and what else she's up to. Anyway, thanks for watching this review, and I hope you enjoy Oppenheimer. You can enjoy it either way you want. If you want to go to the theaters, go to the theaters. If you want to wait till home, wait till home. Not every theater is going to set the volume up to just, I don't know, permanently damaged hearing loss. I don't know what else to say about that, but 11, I'll say. I'll use the Spinal Tap reference of going up to 11. So thanks for watching, and I will review something else and see you guys on the other side.